I don't know about you, but one of the things that I just love about coming to the DRJ is that I get new information and that I get to rub shoulders with people that are really smart and they encourage me. That is, I get information from them, but I also now I'm encouraged to go out and find more and explore more to get more. And our next session is on the topic of confidence and control. And I know that from my experience with all of us out there in the field that sometimes when we get in front of people, we don't have the confidence, and then sometimes when we get put in the situation, we lose our confidence and we fall apart. You heard that yesterday from Dr. Chandler. So confidence and control, and if you think about it, that's going to be important to you because when something falls apart, you want to have the confidence that you can control it. We can't stop it, but we can control and manage what happens during that process. So here's some things that we're going to expect to look for, and I want you to pay attention and watch for this. You're going to gain some insight from case studies about why this idea of mass notification may fail you or may help you. Important point for us. And you're also going to be able to look at from the beginning of notification all the way through the restoration, restoring everything and putting it back to normal. You're going to have a chance to see what happens there. And you're going to know about how to design your communication process so that you can succeed. Listen, this is going to be fun because you've got two speakers, not one, two speakers that are full of knowledge, full of experience, and bring a lot to the table. They also bring great presentation skills. So this is going to be exciting for us. And one of them is the CEO of xMatters. And you've got to figure as a CEO of a company like that, they've got a lot of insight that you and I might not see on a day-to-day basis. The other is, we're going to call her the person who, out of danger, brings us opportunity. And so we have two great speakers today. She's also an author. So you have an author, you have a CEO, and you also have, I'm just going to say, a wealth of knowledge over the years from someone who just celebrated a birthday. She is now at the good, ripe age of 30 years old. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Troy McAlpin, xMatters CEO, and Regina Phelps.
Thank you very much, Barry, for that kind introduction, I think. I'm not sure. What a pleasure it is to be here in San Diego at DRJ. I love coming to San Diego. What an amazingly beautiful place. And how great to be with my colleagues and peers annually here at DRJ. So today I'm talking about the idea of confidence and control at times of crisis. And what a great day to really do that on the anniversary of 9/11. I don't know about you, but I am fascinated about leadership. And I'm particularly fascinated about leadership at times of crisis. Why is it that some people can exude such incredible control and be such exemplary leaders? And they make all of us want to follow them. And others, well, not so much. When we look at all of us in this room, every one of us, whether you're in the field of emergency management or business continuity or disaster recovery, all of us are part of this concept of confidence and control. And all of us have a leadership role to play. So it doesn't matter whether you're the incident manager, the incident commander of your organization, whatever the title is that your group has given you, or you're part of that team that's leading this charge, or maybe you're a support person. All of us need to clearly understand about leadership and about this really important issue of confidence and control. So to that end today, what we're going to be talking about is I have 5 areas I'm going to cover in my section, really talking about the foundation, if you will, of building confidence and control. Really looking at communication, having organized teams, being able to collaborate and plan, talking about evolutionary thinking, and then flexibility. We're doing 2 case studies. I'm doing one, and Troy's doing the other. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about next steps. So let's just dig in here. So let's talk first of all about the issue of confidence and control. Now, when I look at that topic, people will often say to me, Regina, so you've been in practice, I've been in practice for 30 years this year. Oh my God, I am so old. 30 years I've been doing this. And so I have consulted with companies all over the world and talked about these topics for 30 years. People will always say to me, what are the top 3 things that I should have in place or understand or know? And I'll always say pretty much the same thing consistently for all of these 30 years. The first thing is you have to have clear roles and responsibilities for your team. The second is you need to know how to assess an incident and what the process is and the escalation triggers. And the third is you know how to develop an action plan. And I will be honest with you, if you know those three things, you are good, even if you may not have lots of other things figured out. Those three things are critical, and they're wrapped around this entire concept that we're going to talk about in 5 points. So roles and responsibilities, the ability to assess an incident, and the ability to develop an action plan. Those are absolutely paramount. And I'll be honest with you, I often don't see that. So those three things are wrapped around this continuum of 5 major topics that we're going to be talking about over the next hour. And my hope is when we're done today that you clearly understand that all of us have a role to play in this, and each one of us are contributing in these 5 ways. Hopefully all of them. So let's start first of all about communication. This is the one that in some ways is the biggest enigma to me. If you look at any disaster that's occurred in the United States or around the world, the number one complaint always at the end of that disaster is, I didn't know what was going on. I never heard what was happening. I wasn't communicated effectively with. That is an ongoing saga. This is not rocket science. This is not rocket science. And so when we look at communication, it's the ultimate key to all of this. And it talks about, first of all, our ability to communicate, which can be how we message, who we talk to, what tools we use, but what are our skills and abilities in that area? And I would hope all of you are thinking about that because it's so important. You've got to make sure you have realistic expectations for yourself and that you set realistic expectation for your team. And what you also want to make sure is that you're communicating early and often. I have never had anybody say to me, oh my gosh, my employer told me too much. They tell me, they kept me informed too much. I've never heard that. But what I always hear is, they're always too late, they never tell me what's going on, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. That's what I hear. So you want to think about what can we do to solve that. Now, what holds people back from communicating? There's a ton of things, but a couple things. First of all, sometimes they don't even know who they should be talking to, so they haven't figured that out in advance. I always tell people you should have figured out what I call a communication matrix. Develop your key stakeholders. Who do you need to talk to? Who owns that relationship? Who talks to them? What tools would you use? And what's your initial message? Sometimes people are afraid to communicate bad news because they think, oh my gosh, I don't want to be the forebearer of that bad news. People can't handle it. People can't take it. That's not true. People may not like what you say, but they'd rather hear the truth. And they'd rather hear it from you than somebody else. Sometimes what I find, though, is that people have been given the responsibility to communicate, but they have not been given the authority. And you'll know what I mean. You develop a message in your team and you want to send it out, but what do you hear that you have to do next? Send it to legal. Oh my God. Will you ever get it back? Will you get it back in the next 2 or 3 hours? And by then, of course, does everybody know what's going on? Of course. Because the informal network is far more effective than the formal one in that case. So when you have all those roadblocks to communication, you're never going to be able to communicate effectively. It's also important that when you look at communication, that we realize that people sometimes don't have all the tools they need, and specifically, they don't have pre-written templates. This is one of the things that has made my head flat on one side. I will talk to these communicators and I'll say, you have got to, please let me get on my knees right now and beg you, you've got to have templates. You've got to have some initial, pre-approved by legal messages in all the different formats you might use. And I'll tell you one format that's really hard to be good at, and that's 140 characters, which is SMS and Twitter. It's hard to be brilliant, it's hard to be salient, it's hard to have everything in there at 140 characters unless you are really good at it and you've practiced a lot. And most of them haven't done that. So I want to see pre-written communication. So they basically pull them out, they make the fine little tweaks, and then they can send it. And if you don't have that, you're wasting time, because in a disaster, the last thing you want to be staring at is a white piece of paper and you don't know what to do next. Sometimes people are very afraid of alarming people. They don't want to say how bad it is. They don't want to share the magnitude. They don't want to be terribly transparent. Let me remind you that social media will be so transparent when you are not. And if you doubt that at all, you should be in the habit right now, every day, when there is any sort of emergency in the world, go to Twitter and start watching what's happening as far as the ongoing current messaging. And you will begin to learn all kinds of things. Now, 50% of it might be wrong, but that's the first part of news you're going to get. And I will tell you, you're not the only one that's following Twitter. Who else is following Twitter? The media. That's exactly right. And then you and your company are having to respond to what the media has read, right or wrong, on Twitter. So you need to be salient in those areas. You need to understand those tools, and you need to have things rewritten and pre-written in advance and approved so that you can use them. It's a concept called tribal knowledge. The idea of tribal knowledge goes back to, remember this story years ago, the emperor with no clothes? Right? The idea that everybody knows something. We all know it, but no one's sort of necessarily saying it out loud. And so tribal knowledge is really acknowledging what we all know. We all knew the emperor had no clothes. It's the same kind of idea. Everyone knows what's going on. You just need to actually acknowledge it and stick it out there. The second key issue is the issue of organized teams. Now, when we look at organized teams, those on your staff need to know what their job is. And many times their disaster job is different than their day job. So what we're looking for is very clear roles and responsibilities. So I want to see when a team is activated, I want to see, first of all, what's that org chart look like that they're going to be using in their structure, whatever it is. And secondarily, what I want to see is I want to see clear roles and responsibilities. I want to see a checklist. Now, why is a checklist a great thing? You might say, well, gosh, they're smart, they could figure it out. Well, think about it. In a large disaster, especially a regional disaster, first of all, the people that are assigned to those jobs may not show up. And you have a list, and then you can hand to somebody and say, okay, this is your new job. Secondarily, they might be so shaken by the event that they need to have some idea of where to even start, even though that is their job. And the third area might be literally is that they just want to make sure they've done everything because there's so much going on. So a checklist, especially refined over time, is highly effective for making sure that your teams are well organized. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of my comments about this issue of initial assessment. There's one thing I would really encourage you to do, and yesterday in my talk with my colleague from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, we talked about this concept of an initial assessment team. Who has the authority in your organization to make the initial assessment? Who comes together and says, oh my gosh, is this an incident? Do we activate? Are those people pre-selected? Do they know how to get together? Have they figured out where they would meet physically, how they would be connected electronically? Do they have criteria about how they would actually then activate? Those things are really important. And that's all under this concept of organization and needs to be done. So checklist documentation, absolutely essential. Then, of course, what you have is that once you've got an organized team and you have a plan, you've got to do training and you've got to do exercises. Now, one of my core specialties is exercise design. I design about 100 to 150 exercises a year, and so now I've done thousands of them. I will tell you that people fall back to their level of training. I know you want them to pull out the plan. They're not going to do that. Get over it. They're going to fall back to their level of training, and hopefully you don't have to fall back too far. So they are going to go back to their last exercise in their mind. They're going to go back to their last training experience, and you better hope it's good. So that's where having exercises on a regular basis, ideally about every 6 months, will build a solid team with strong muscle memory, which is exactly what you need to manage any of these events. They need to know their job. Make it easy for them. Give them good documentation, give them good checklists, give them good training, and give them good exercises. Collaboration and planning. Very important aspect of this idea of control in times of crisis. Now, many of you know my background's in the field of nursing, so I'm going to start with my nursing advice of the day. First of all, stop and think about it. When there's a major event, you need to stop and collect your thoughts just for a little tiny bit. Probably not long, but a little bit. And you need to take a deep breath. Now, why am I telling you to do that? Well, think about this. Your brain, up here in the cranium, really important organ of your body, 30% of your blood flow is going through your brain at any given time. Why do we need so much blood up there? Because we need lots of air in our brain. And what do you do when you're under a lot of stress? What happens to your breathing? Gets very shallow, gets really tight. We aren't moving much air at all. So we are depriving this organ up here that's desperately in need of some air. So please stop, collect your thoughts just for a simple moment. And then what you want to do is just take a deep breath. Get some air into that body of yours. And now what you want to do, now that you've done those two simple things, stop, take a deep breath, is develop what's called situational awareness. What does that mean? What the heck is going on? Look around, reach out. Are you doing all of this? Maybe not you, but you're data gathering. You're having other people report back to you. You're having people search the internet. You're doing whatever it takes to get situational awareness. And when you do that, what you're doing is you're then going to be building your decisions, building your plans based on that situational awareness. You may have a lot of time, you may have no time. But you've got to move quickly, and that's what you want to do is you want to reach out to others, find out what's going on, develop situational awareness. And then what you do are the four most important things in this concept of collaboration and planning. You got to take charge. Somebody has to be in charge. You want to take charge, and then right after that, what you want to do is you want to literally develop a plan of action. What are the key, specific, strategic objectives? Think of to-do list that need to be done. And then what you want to do is you want to assign them so that every one of those items is owned by someone. So we're not wondering like, gee, I wonder who's assessing the damage. I wonder who's accounting for all of our staff. No, it should be really, really, really clear. Then what you do is then you determine when are we coming back together again to actually check our progress. And if you utilize the incident command system, that term is known as the operational period. And that is this whole concept, these four things: taking charge, developing a plan of action, making clear assignments, and assessing developing your next meeting time is all what we call incident action planning, if you're familiar with ICS. Really important. If you never use ICS, you should be doing this every time you have an incident. The next area is in the area of evolutionary thinking. Think forward thinking. Your job is not just looking in the moment, you better be looking out. And that's because over time, thinking begins to evolve. So we want to do forward thinking, we want to be looking forward on what's happening. And the reason for that is that things are happening so quickly. You can't really assume control of the situation, but you can assume control. So what you want to do as a leader is we need to basically be having our brain in many different places, but we want to be looking forward and being evolutionary. You can't control the disaster, but you can control the response. And that's really a key thing for you to think about as we go along. The last part of that piece is, lastly, you've got to lead. You've all seen people who are in leadership positions and they can't lead. It's painful. It's painful, it's awful, and we're desperately seeking leadership and we don't get it. Somebody has to assume the mantle of leadership and they have to lead. And if it doesn't happen, there's a vacuum there, there's a void, and it will get filled by somebody who will assume that leadership, and it may not be the leadership that you want nor need. The last key area is in the area of flexibility. This is very, very important. I find that many people in the corporate world in particular have a hard time with this because they want to know everything before they make a decision, and they have a hard time being agile or flexible. And so what you look at is that our leaders don't want to lose composure, but they have to be so adaptable, constantly moving and changing. And part of this is that by the very nature of a crisis, things are constantly changing. They're constantly changing and moving. And what we need to do is we need to be flexible, because what we started with at the beginning, our first response is never going to be our last. You will never know everything until months have gone by. So don't use that as the criteria to make a decision. You take what you know, you make a decision, you move forward. And if it doesn't work, it's the wrong decision, you make another one. And that's what we want to be thinking about with our leaders. In crises, we can't be wedded to a single strategy. We need to constantly take in new information, listen carefully, and keep moving. That's our job. So as we go through our 2 case examples today, I want you to go back and be constantly asking yourself this question. What about the communication? What about the evolutionary thinking? What about the flexibility? What about the adaptability and control? Think about those issues as we go along. Now, the example that I'm going to talk about in mine is one that I just love because it's so incredibly fascinating, and it's just happened a few years ago. I'm sure many of you know it, the Miracle on the Hudson. How many of you are familiar with this case study? Okay, a few of you. This is one of those things that you think, what would I do if I was in that situation? So as you might remember on this particular day, January 15th, 2009, cold winter day in New York. About a minute after takeoff in New York's LaGuardia. How many of you have flown out of LaGuardia? A lot of you, right? Very crowded, very dense airport, lots of people everywhere, right? There's not a lot of space around New York. A U.S. Air flight, 1549, ran through a whole flock of geese. And when this happened, the bad news is that the birds were sucked into the engines of this Airbus 320, and they didn't do so well. The geese nor the engines, actually. Now, just a little bit of Airbus trivia for you. Airbus engines are designed to eat birds, but only 7 birds, and they have to be 1.5 pounds or less. Now, the bad news is that Canadian geese, they're a little heavier than that, between 16 and 18 pounds apiece. So, you get one of those and you've already exceeded your quota. So what happened in this situation, literally, is that these Canadian geese, there were hundreds of them. And as Scully describes in his, if you ever heard him speak, he's a great speaker. And he talks about that the plane was just pelted, like somebody was throwing baseballs at it. And the whole plane was literally hit with all of these birds, and quite a few of them got sucked into the engine, and it killed both of them. And at that point you say, wow, what a bummer is that? So where was their leader at this time? Captain Sullenberger. He was just an amazing individual. In less than 4 minutes, and he describes it as 208 seconds. Think about that. 208 seconds. Oh my goodness. In less than 4 minutes, what happened is they had to make the decision about what they were going to do to a plane that had no thrust, no engines, and was literally just going to drop from the sky. They were not very far in elevation. They had only gone up about 2,900 feet, so they were in a very dangerous position. They had really no place to go. And if you're familiar with the New York area, they really had no place to go. So they had to decide whether they were going to try and go back to LaGuardia, go to Teterboro, New Jersey, or land someplace else. Well, where else could they have gone? Really? Really, it was only one choice, and that was the Hudson. Now, this is a very big deal, as you might imagine. This is called ditching a plane. And ditching has not been done very successfully, ever. There's only 3 cases of commercial airlines ditching, which means landing in the water, where there have been survivors. And in fact, in the checklist that they change, you know how they have the amazing checklists in the flight deck? There's no checklist for ditching a plane. They were doing the checklist on how to restart the engines, but there was no checklist for ditching the plane. So if they had made the wrong choice, all 155 people on that plane would have died, and who knows how many people would have died on the ground. So they did an amazing thing. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you a very tiny short video, and it takes the 4 minutes and shrinks it into about 2.5, because they took out all the dark spaces of the silence. And what you'll hear, the first thing is it has kind of cool, it's animated, and you see the plane take off, and you'll see these animated geese flying. And then what happens is that you'll hear the plane where the birds have struck the plane, and then you'll hear all of the dialogue between Captain Sullenberger and the flight control folks. Notice that their flight number is 1549, but notice how it changes because they obviously are a little stressed out. It turns into 1539, and then it turns into 1529. But listen to his communication and listen to his clear direction. So here we go.
Cactus 1549, 700, climbing 5,000.
Cactus 15.9, departure to contact line, maintain 15,000.
Maintain 15,000, Cactus 1549.
Cactus 15.9, turn left lane 270.
This is Cactus 1539, hit birds through lost thrust on both engines, returning back towards LaGuardia.
Okay, you need to return to LaGuardia. Turn left heading up 220.
220.
Tower, stop your departures, got emergency returning. Who is it? It's 1529. He bird strike, he lost the thrust in the engines, he's returning immediately.
Cactus 1529, which engines?
He lost thrust in both engines, he said.
Got it.
Cactus 1529. We can get it for you. Do you want to try to land runway 13?
We're unable. We may end up in the Hudson.
All right, Cactus 1549. It's going to be left traffic to runway 31.
Unable.
Okay, what do you need to land? Do you want to try to go to Teterboro?
Yes.
Teterboro, Empire. Actually, LaGuardia departure guy, emergency inbound.
Hey, got it.
Cactus 1529 over the George Washington Bridge. Wants to go to the airport right now.
Wants to go to our airport. Check. Does he need assistance?
Yes, it was a bird strike. Can I get him in for runway 1?
Runway 1, that's good.
Cactus 1529, turn right 280. You can land runway 1 at Teterboro.
We can't do it.
Okay, which runway would you like at Teterboro?
We're going to be in the Hudson.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus? Cactus 1549, radar contact is lost. You also got Newark Airport up here too, clocking about 7 miles. Eagle 54718, turn left thing 210.
210, 4718. I think he said he was going in the Hudson.
Cactus 1529, Houston.
I think he's going in the Hudson. So it's very cool at the end of this video, then it actually goes into a real photograph of what it looked like when they got out of the plane. 208 seconds, 4 minutes, pretty incredible leadership. So what were the skills that he demonstrated for us? Wow, wouldn't you want your leader to be like that? And certainly your pilot, right? That's what I'm thinking. I fly about 200,000 miles a year. I want that pilot every time. First of all, he did stop and think. It wasn't like he had a lot of time, but he did. He realized very quickly, not too many options here. And he was really working it, though. He was working it. Then he had a very clear grasp of the situation. He had great situational awareness. He knew where he was. He knew exactly what was around him, what his resources were, and he realized there weren't many. That was the bad news, right? Then he was willing to make the decision. He was willing to make a decision to ditch a plane with 155 people in it, knowing that only 3 cases of those ditches have ever resulted in survivors. That's big. That's really big. He had clear, direct communication. Unable. We're going to be in the Hudson. We're not debating this. He also, he actually only made one announcement to the passengers. He said very clearly, it's a very short announcement. He said, "This is your captain. Prepare for emergency landing. Brace." That's all he said. Now, he didn't say, "Okay, get out your vests." Remember how many people on planes do the vest thing? He realized that if they thought they were going to do a water landing, that everybody would be halfway in their vest, halfway out of their vest. They'd be looking for the vest. They'd be trying to figure out what they were doing. They'd be screaming like crazy, and it'd be not good. So what he opted to do is he just wanted them to brace, which is where you put your hands around your legs, put your head all the way down, and you're hanging on. Because they hit the water going about 4 times faster than you normally do when you land. And there's no landing gear, right, when you're in the water. So it was really a hard impact. He wanted them to be braced, not worried about a vest. He was willing to carry his decision into action. And that took, guts beyond I can't even imagine. He didn't like he had a lot of choices, but that was unbelievable as far as his leadership is concerned. And he was constantly reevaluating. What you don't hear, what you hear in the internal flight communications, is that about 20 seconds before they hit the Hudson, he turned to his co-pilot, Jeffrey Skiles, and said, "Got any other ideas?" So he was working it, he was like thinking, well, what else could happen here? That's good. That's an exemplary leader, exemplary. As far as the extra mile, he actually then walked the entire plane twice When the water was up to the chest and the back on his last turn, making sure that every single person was off the plane. Every single person. And when he did that, he also had the wherewithal to go back into the flight deck and pull out the FAA maintenance log, because he knew that they would need that for the investigations of the plane. I mean, is this guy together or what? I don't know. Then, what's amazing to me is that even with the fact they couldn't use the rear doors because they were underwater and they could only use 4 doors out of 6, they still got 155 people out of that plane in less than 3.5 minutes, including 2 people in wheelchairs and about 10 kids. Unbelievable, right? Wow. Amazing. So, how did he do? So how do you think his communication was? Pretty good, huh? Yeah, I'd say so. How about the organized team approach he had? Pretty good. How about collaboration and planning? Quick? Yes, but he had it. Evolutionary thinking, forward thinking. Pretty good, huh? And flexibility. Wow, was this guy flexible? Oh my gosh. There's not even a checklist for what he did. So he demonstrated amazing, amazing skills. So now what we want to do is we want to see what you would do in a situation of a disaster. And so Troy is going to present an actual case of which you get to make some immediate decisions, and we'll see how you do. Troy, come on up here.
Thanks, Regina.
You're welcome.
Well, are you guys ready to be Captain Sullenberger? That's no pressure, right? That's not a big setup. No problem. We can do this. All right. Shouldn't be too tough for us. First off, before we start, I want to give you a quick introduction to Vanna. Vanna's my assistant up here. So, yeah. We'll see if you're still applauding when we're done, but that's good. It's a good start. Okay, so the case we're going to talk about a little bit is the Virginia earthquake that happened back a little over a year ago. How many people in here are based on the East Coast? Well, quite a few. And, wow, that's weird. It's mostly this side of the room. You guys don't know this. You're sitting on a fault line. Everyone from California knows that and is over there. So this is going to be a live disaster training right now. Here we go. No. Okay, so not a very common event, right? A very large-scale earthquake, magnitude 5.8, the largest earthquake in over 100 years east of the Rockies. How many people had well-trained, well-written, clear and concise emergency preparedness plans that employees knew like the back of their hand at the moment that earthquake took place in New Jersey? Not so many, right? But yeah, you had one. You had the plan and it wasn't followed. That's a great, I should pay you for that segue. That's a perfect segue for our case today, okay? We're going to talk about that. That's an absolutely perfect segue. That's right. So even if you have the plan, it's probably not the one that was at the top of your list that you would have run the drill on. And as Regina said, you got to exercise these plans once every 6 months. When you start a new job and you come in and they say, you're going to be a new employee with us, here is your manual, these are the procedures you're going to follow. How long does it feel until you feel like, I got this. I understand what's expected of me. I know my tasks. I can operate. I'm proficient at it. How about if I said, I'm going to let you do it 1 hour every 6 months, and I want you to be proficient at it when people are screaming at you? Okay, that's what we're expecting of our teams, right? So it's not just the plan. It's going to be how do we communicate clear, concise direction, organize our teams, make sure that they're operating the way we need to, and in the case of something we may not have been planning for. So in this case in Virginia, big earthquake, not something we thought was going to happen. It was so big, rippled across 12 states, got Eastern Canada involved. Big. Lots of us weren't ready for it. We weren't planning for it. Well, I think we can unite on this concept, Republicans and Democrats, right? It's one of the things you never talk about in front of a crowd. My grandparents taught me, well, there's 3 things you don't talk about. One of them is politics, so let's do it. Let's see what happens. See if Grandma was right. I think we can all agree that this is a bit of an unstable rock that we live on, and it's hard to be prepared for every single disaster that may come our way. And so flexibility is really, really important. Prepare for what you can, but be flexible. Be willing to take that deep breath and get command and control, and be flexible to be able to deal with those instances. In this case, in the Virginia earthquake, there's no way that every business was prepared for this disaster, and there's absolutely no way that every employee at every company knew what was happening. I remember talking to one of our employees who was based in Virginia, and he literally was sick to his stomach. He was like, that was the scariest thing I've ever been through. I'm a native Northern Californian. I'm like, what are you talking about? 5.8? Bridges are still up. You're fine. World Series keeps going. What are you crying about? It's fine. But it was something that people weren't aware of. So what happens in that case? You know, how do people react? Are they following? Are they doing what you need? Are they getting the information you back to you so that you can stay in command and control? You know, one of the first things that you need to get is that situational awareness that you heard about from Regina. And you heard about from Dave and John earlier that the way people are communicating today is different than the way they used to. Now, if something happens, an event you're not ready for, how are you going to get the information? How are your employees going to get that to you? I've got the answer right here. Everybody knows what this is. A wallet. A wallet card, right? Wallet card. Every employee is going to open up, grab their emergency preparedness wallet card, and they're going to get us some situational awareness right when we need it. How many people in this room have a wallet card on them? Oh, raise your hands a little bit higher, please. Wow, I expected, this is the disaster recovery journal. If you guys don't have your wallet cards on you, there's no way everyone else has them. If I'm talking to the head of marketing or the head of operations or people on the factory floor, they don't have their wallet cards either. So how do you expect to get information from people that are there on the scene? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Run to Twitter. Right, we'll run to Twitter. We'll get the feed from there and get our accurate information that way. Well, we're right. We have these different social networks now that we can use to get information. That's absolutely true. But let's take a look at this. Look at this picture. Look at the expressions on their faces. These people look like they are in command and control of themselves at this point. Hey, every day I get up. I'm from the East Coast. Every day I get up, the earth doesn't move. Today it moves. Whoa. I am not in command and control of my faculties at this point, right? No way. And so what do? They call their spouse. I think I'm going to die. Okay? Don't sell my baseball card collection just yet. I know you want to clean out my closet, but don't do it just yet. Okay? What's the second thing they do? I guess they tweet it. Maybe they tweet it. And we're assuming that you're looking at a Twitter feed and you're going to recognize your employees who are going to hashtag you so that you can pick it up and find it and get that awareness that you need. That's a little tough. It's going to take time to get that information back. What do these people have that can help you? I mean, wallets help. I'm always willing to take people's wallets, but that's not going to help me here. So what do these people have in the picture? Yep. They all have cell phones. Every employee that you work with has a cell phone. Okay? Now, second thing my grandparents say not to talk about, one is religion, the other is your favorite cell phone. Now, BlackBerry, iPhone, doesn't matter. They've all got something on them that you can use to be that intelligent wallet card. Okay? It's a great opportunity to get information for people that are right there in the heart of the incident and get that information to you faster. You've got an incredible social network that you've not thought about bringing in and helping you get that situational awareness as quickly as you can. They've all got cell phones. So let's take a look at what that cell phone could do for you. Vanna. Vanna's up here. Vanna's a hand model, in case you don't know. Hand models, he's been in the Palmolive commercial. You may recognize the digits as they come up here on the screen. So what you should expect to see and what your employees have, because they're bringing their own personal devices to work, how many of you have a policy in your company where you can bring your own personal device to work? You can. How many of you can connect to your applications and it's cool? It's okay to do that. Okay, so that's maybe about 1/10 of the room. When I ask this question next year, I'll bet it's 1/2 of the room. And the following year, I'll bet it's 90% of the room. Okay? It is a trend that's changing very quickly. Employers are letting people bring their own devices to work because the plans are free, and you can actually work from your own device and pay for it, and I don't have to pay for it. This is a great deal. Such a great deal. Okay? That gets very hard for us to figure out how to communicate with people that have their own personal devices. So we've got to have a way to encourage all of the employees in our company to have an application on that device that's going to get us that situational awareness so we can start doing what we need to do. So it's got to look something like this. First of all, it's got to be really simple. The person's got to be able just to press a button. And it doesn't matter what application that you're using in this or how you're doing this, but it has to look something like this, that the person's got a checklist right there at their fingertips. It's very simple, and they can tell you by just pressing a couple of buttons what's happening to them. Or maybe it's recording a voicemail or a voice message for you and sending you that clip. Or it's grabbing the GPS signal off that device so that you get that awareness as well of where they are. So they can tell you, I'm okay, and you now have my GPS location. Or I'm not okay, and you have my GPS location. That's really important. 10 years ago, we could triangulate a device and get within 15 feet of where you were standing. 15 feet, 10 years ago, by triangulation from 3 cell towers. Today, we can get within a foot, right? 15 feet, a foot, whatever. That's not very much progression in 10 years of technology. But the difference is that all of you who are iPhone users, and all of you that are Droid users, and all of you that have nice, cool smartphones are now permissioning people with your GPS location all the time without thinking about it. My daughter does it on my phone all the time. All the time. Downloads a new game, says yes to GPS location. That manufacturer, who I have no idea who they are, could be the Russian government for all I know, now knows where I am. Who knows? Who knows who it is? But I've now given them permission to use my GPS signal. But if my work wants it, oh no, legal, HR, come on, defend me, personal right, you can't know that information. This is different. If I'm going to give you an application that's going to save your life, you're probably going to say, yeah, turn GPS on. Okay? If you're willing to do it for Angry Birds, you're probably willing to do it for your own life. Fair? Okay, so that first thing is that's how we're going to incorporate these things, and this is how it's going to help us get that situational awareness that we need. All right. Second step, we've got to get our teams organized. We now know and have good intelligence that something bad is happening. Okay, we may have felt it. The Earth was moving. That doesn't feel right. Something's wrong here. Now it's time to get our teams organized and get them responding the way we need them to. Okay? I listen to that. I've heard that Sullenberger clip a couple of times, and every single time I get chills. And every single time I go, man, I want that pilot too. But I don't think I could do that. I'm not sure I could. But you know what? If I'm in that situation, I know the first thing I'm going to do, I'll remember exactly what Gina told me. I'm going to take a huge breath. I'm going to breathe so deep. I'm going to get control of myself first. Now I'm going to figure out how to communicate out to people and get them to respond the way I need to, because they're not thinking clearly. Look at the expressions on those faces. So, we need them to remain calm. This is where I need a brave volunteer from the crowd. Don't overwhelm me with hands. No, just one. Please, just one. You, sir. Okay, this is going to be a little painful. Is anyone an EMT in the room? How are you? Bobby?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Nashville.
Nashville. It's funny, I picked you up for a Californian with that accent. All right. Test. All right. No, it's not yours, Bobby. No. This is my microphone. It's my show. You're a guest here. Have we ever met before?
No. No, we haven't.
We have not. Have you ever seen this magic trick before?
I hope not.
All right, Bobby, it's not a magic show.
Oh,
come on,
okay.
stick with me here,
yeah,
okay?
No,
We're talking about serious stuff. This is an earthquake disaster. It's something, Okay. All right, I'm already a little worried. Is this a plant? Who put you here? All right.
He did.
Okay.
The man with no hair.
The man with no hair. Okay. Have you ever been in an earthquake before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. All right, I need 2 volunteers. I'm looking for someone that's on a coast, a right coast, a left coast, but not in the middle. No, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work with you. I have faith.
I have a data center in Memphis.
You have a data center in Memphis?
Oh, yeah. So I'm familiar with earthquakes.
It's weird, because I said somewhere from the east coast or the west coast, and you gave me Memphis back.
Yeah, well, that's sort of middle. Yeah, that's a middle coast.
There's
a river right there, and it's the coast of the river. Oh, you meant like ocean. Oh, see, yeah, we have coasts on those rivers. Sorry. Yeah. Two sides of the river.
It's a big river.
We call them beaches.
We call them sides here. It's all right. I'm going to use that with my kids. The kids who want to go to the beach, and I'm going to take them to a river and see what happens.
That works for us, yeah.
Okay. It's good. I can save money on spring break. This is a good thing. I'm glad to have you up here, Bobby. This is going to be a quick exercise, but it looks like it may not be.
Okay.
What company are you with?
A company called MDON.
MDON. And what business is that?
It's a healthcare clearinghouse. We used to be part of WebMD.
Ah, okay. Healthcare clearing. It's kind of like a hospital, like get in, get out.
Yeah, sort of.
That type of thing?
But not that kind of clear. We do insurance transactions.
Insurance transactions, okay. All right, good. That's good, because that's why I was asking for an EMT. So where are my hands for EMT in case he falls off the stage? Anybody? All right. Bobby, come over here. Have you ever used a computer before?
Once, I think.
Once. Well, you're going to be just fine. So Vanna's going to set you up. Oh, man. This was not in the plan. All right. So I don't know how many of you have ever done presentations before, but one of the cardinal rules of giving a presentation is leave nothing to chance. Nothing. So Bobby and I just met. That was probably not my wisest move. All right, Bobby, it's going to be just fine. You're going to be great up here. All right, so Bobby's not going to do this alone, everybody. We're all going to participate. So you should have somewhere on your table in front of you a blank sheet of paper. It looks something like this. All right, so we're going to start off with that big box. If you don't have one, don't panic. You can look along with your neighbor. We're all friends here, and you guys can work together. I'm seeing some great smiles. You guys are just pissed off that you have to participate, don't you? You're like, Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. We paid good money to be here. It's bad enough I have to sit through this, and you're going to make me write stuff down. Okay, in the message box. Here we go. Okay, folks, this is a DRJ conference, so I've got to be careful, and I need to tell you that this is a drill. Your emergency exits are back there. If for whatever reason this is so bad, you're like, I'm out of here. This sucks. We're leaving. There are your emergency exits. But this is a drill. Okay? I am going to be reading a situation to Bobby, which I didn't bring up here, and we'll see how well he does. And you guys, I guess I left my, you guys are going to be writing it down. And let's just see how good you are at this. It was locked up in my briefcase so that no one could cheat. I saw some of you guys at the xMatters party last year. I know about you guys, so. You ready for this? I hope so too. I hope so too. All right, here's the situation. You guys are on side one. Deep breath. Everybody with me? This is the situation. You have no formal communication plan built for this situation. Okay? Bobby? It's an earthquake. Oh man, it's an earthquake. You gotta focus, Bobby. Okay, here's the situation. There's been a 7.0 earthquake. The epicenter is in Watsonville. The closest affected campus is in the San Jose, California. We're not sure if there's been a loss of life, but the EOC has been activated. We don't know which buildings are impacted, but the severity is extreme. There's a threat to life. We need to evacuate. We got to get employees out. Keep going. Let's go. You guys got this. A 7.0 earthquake. It's in Watsonville. The closest affected campus is San Jose, Bobby. San Jose. I don't know if anyone's dead, but we got to get the EOC up and going. And I'm not sure which buildings are impacted yet. Get that message out, Bobby. We need people out there. Okay, thank you, everybody. Whew, thank God I took a breath before you guys started that. That was violent. Okay, let's take a look. Bobby, how'd we do?
Excellent.
Bobby said you got a typo there. You got a capital H behind the T. The Earth is moving. 7.0 earthquake, but no information on the loss of life. That was good. I don't know what that is. We're now activating our action plan. Activate our response plan. That was pretty good. What do you guys think? Let's give Bobby a hand. You had enough? He's not going anywhere. He's loving this. All right, so, point, we didn't plan. Something came up. It's hard to hear those facts coming in. It's even harder when people start screaming like a bunch of East Coasters. I don't know, a bunch of Yankee fans went crazy in this room for some reason. That was weird. Okay, it's hard, right? It's hard to get that situation where it's hard to have the presence of mind, but people are counting on you to do it. We've got to use technology to our advantage, especially in cases when we don't have a plan that's ready for us to use. So what can we do different to help Bobby? Well, let's try it differently. Let's turn that page over. Two-sided page, turn it over. This side looks a little bit more like a checklist. Okay? You ready? Yes. All right. Bobby's ready? So, Bobby, I want you to go, and we're going to go through the same situation. Those of you that participated oddly in that yelling at us thing, it was rude, first of all. If you don't like the presentation, I told you where the doors were. All right. Bobby, you ready for this? It's an earthquake.
It's an earthquake.
Yeah, that's what you get when you don't pay a flash mob, right? They're like, we're doing it once. It's not that funny anymore. All right, flash mob, you can just stay down. It's fine. All right, Bobby, it's an earthquake. 7.0 earthquake. Epicenter is Watsonville. Closest affected campus is San Jose. We're not sure if there's been a loss of life. The EOC has been activated. We don't know which buildings are impacted, but the severity is extreme. There's a threat to life. We need to evacuate and have employees follow instructions. How'd you do that time? Point and click. It's a little easier to answer questions, right? So same thing when someone's reporting the incident, it's easier to answer questions than it is to tell you what you want to know. I have no idea what you want to know. I'm worried about saving my own hide right now, right? It's the same thing with information that's being constructed to go out. It's easier to answer questions to make sure that the message goes out. It's going to be appropriate for the person receiving it. So Bobby, that was excellent. Let's have a hand for Bobby, please. Thank you. Appreciate it. Who wants to see more of Bobby? Raise your hand. You do? Okay, I got it. So let's look at what Bobby did. First of all, we have the template of a construct of a message that's been built, but we don't necessarily know what happened. Bobby just answered some questions, and so those questions should auto-magically find themselves into a message that's going to make sense to the recipient. Plan for what you can, be flexible and evolve for what you can't. Okay? So Bobby, I have one more task for you, because you're just so popular and the audience wants to hear from you one more time. This one's pretty easy, though. Because you just showed us how great you are with technology, do you normally sit in the front row? Like, have you been doing that since you were in grade school? Did other kids make fun of you? A little bit. Well, I feel bad. So here's a brand new iPad for participating. Who's the hair?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Poor guy. Hopefully that's all he remembers about this presentation. He gets home, I got an iPad. It's horrible. I told you I don't like Californians. Met another one. Didn't like the guy. All right. Okay, so as Regina said earlier, one of the things we have to do is not get stuck in our biases. As things are happening, it's very easy to get stuck into the situation that you think is happening and to stop listening to more information. Okay, that happens to me in my job all the time. I feel like I've got it. I know what's going on. People are saying, hey, this is changing. This is different. And I'm like, no. We're going to stay the course, right? I know where we're going. This is the right thing to do. Every single disaster we've been involved in as a person or as a professional changes as it goes. You've got to be receptive to the new inputs and the new things that are coming in. And you've got to be able to communicate that effectively to others as it's happening. Can't get stuck. Your teams are mobile, right? We've got the mobile devices. People are all over the place. And you're now dealing with people in different time zones, different languages, different devices, different biases, different concerns. It's much more complicated than it was 10 or 15 years ago. There isn't a bank today that doesn't have people that are working in multiple countries. In fact, most of our companies are working in multiple countries. It's much more difficult. So now we've got to figure out, how do I mobilize a team that is not only on different devices or in different cities, but they're in different countries and are going to look at that information and interpret it differently. How do we do that? And they're also not trained. Remember what I said earlier? How many of you would be comfortable starting a new job when the employer said, we're going to invest in you. You're so important to us, we're going to give you 2 hours of training a year. 1 hour every 6 months. And when all hell breaks loose, you better be like Sully. You better be that good. Oh man, time to look for a new job. That's not good. But that's what we're expecting of the teams. Here, I've got it all figured out though, folks. I can help you with this. When something happens, and your teams are in the field, and when I say teams, I'm not talking about the response teams that you practice with every time. That's cheating. And in a real disaster, those aren't the people that are always going to be there to help you. There's employees that have had no drills, no professional training, but they're there, and you need them to do something. Uh-oh. That's even going to be harder. Okay? So you've got to figure out a way, how can I get them the information or a task that they need to do to give me the input back that I need so that I can be effective. And I have solved this problem for you. You guys excited? Here's how we're going to do it. Regina misspoke. Rule number 3, never ever say a woman was wrong. That was my grandmother's rule. So I've just broken all 3. It's a trifecta. Okay? But she was wrong. She said that in the heat of that battle, folks, get a grip. No one's going back to the business continuity plan. She's totally wrong. We can do this. We can do this. Work with me. The plan. Okay? Now, first of all, a couple things you should notice about this plan. Number 1, passes the weight test. So it must be good, right? It's really big. Here's how you deal with mobile employees. First of all, runner, get it down to FedEx Kinko. Okay? They take credit cards, 1,000 copies. 3-hole punch, put them in binders. We need an insert so everyone knows it's a plan. Okay? 1,000 of them. Get those binders back to the office. Bike couriers. Bike couriers can get these out to our employees no matter where they're at. This can work. No. Another thing you do with presentations, of course, is you want to read your audience. And the entire front row here is going, you're so full of crap. That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Of course, that's not going to work. Okay? It's good to have the plan. It's not going to work for people in the field that need it. They have to have instructions. What do I do next? It has to be that simple. Vanna, what do I do next? Okay, let's take a look. We've got a floor supervisor here. What is it that you expect them to do? What are the tasks? We're going to walk you through these tasks. I want you to grab the kit. I want you to make sure the floor is clear. Okay? I want you to tag these as you're going so that you are just doing the next step that I need you to do. And I need this feedback back. I need to know if that floor is cleared or not. The person that's trained to do this might not be available. So what are you going to do with someone that's not trained, that you expect to follow a set of lists? They've got to be able to work with this and do it as quickly as you expect them to. Vanna, everyone appreciate Vanna's fingers? Yeah. Lots of lotion, in case you're wondering. Can you use the other hand? No, yeah. So she asked if we could use the other hand so we could see what it is you were doing. So how about this? I'll show it to you on video. Is that okay? Oops. Wait for it. Wait for it. Okay. Checklist, floor supervisor, grab the kit, let the super know we're getting out, inspect, change the status of what I've done, task is completed, announce the evacuations next. You're going to have to just envision Vanna's finger reaching out here. That's the best I can give you. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're not going to get a plan to the person. We're only going to give them the inputs that they need so that they can respond the way they need to. This is a great quote from General George Marshall. A common characteristic of people who accomplish something unusual. So think about what we just talked about. 1 hour of practice every 6 months. You may have 0 hours of practice every 6 months. This is going to be something unusual. In order for you to accomplish something unusual, it's your understanding and focus on the objective. What in the world is the objective in the middle of a crisis? How do you communicate that to people? How do they know what the objective is? How do they stay in command and control of themselves when they're really just worried about themselves at this moment? How do they focus on the objective? You've got to put it in front of them. So if you get the objectives right, a lieutenant can write the strategy. And by that, it's your entire team can respond and be part of the restoration process for you. Regina, watch the binder. It's big.
It's big. I'm going to miss that. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So I think what we wanted to demonstrate to you today was simply this, that regardless of what your role is, whether you're the person in charge of the event, the incident commander, the incident manager, whether you lead the program, you're a program player, whether you're a team member, whether you support a team, all of us in this room have a tremendous role to play in any crisis. And one of those roles is all built around this concept of confidence and control. And the more organized we are, the better tools we have, the better plans we have, the better checklists we have, the better off that we're all going to be. And we encourage you as you leave here today to think about that circle of those 5 skills, because we believe that those are what all of us need to exude and bring to our business in order to manage an event. So what we believe is this, that communication, along with organized teams, along with collaboration and planning, along with evolutionary thinking, and along with flexibility, will result in confidence and control. Thank you very much.